Hello everyone, Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. Today we will talk about the return of the river titans, rewilding hippopotamuses in Europe. Hippopotamuses used to be part of the biological diversity of Europe until about 10,000 years ago. In today's video, we will talk about the history of hippopotamuses in Europe and how they returned hippopotamuses in Europe could help us against climate change and improve the ecological system on the continent. I really hope that you enjoy this video, and I would be very happy to hear your comments. The European hippopotamus, Hippopotamus antiquus, is an extinct species of hippopotamus that lived during the Pleistocene epoch. It is one of the ancestors of the modern common hippopotamus, Hippopotamus amphibius, which is found in sub-Saharan Africa today. The European hippopotamus evolved from an early form of hippopotamus that appeared in Africa around 10 million years ago. It is believed to have migrated to Europe around 1.8 million years ago during the early Pleistocene. The species adapted to the cooler, temperate climate of Europe, developing larger body sizes than their African relatives. Hippopotamus antiquus was slightly larger than the modern hippopotamus, with males weighing around 3,000 to 4,000 kilograms, 6,600 to 8,800 pounds, and females somewhat lighter. It also had slightly shorter limbs, making it more adapted to living in the European environment. The European hippopotamus lived in a variety of regions across Europe, including parts of modern-day France, Germany, the United Kingdom, Italy, and Greece. Fossil evidence suggests that the species thrived in river valleys and floodplains, where they could find ample water and vegetation, as these were their primary habitats. During the Pleistocene, Europe experienced fluctuating climate conditions, including glacial and interglacial periods. The European hippopotamus was adapted to the cool, temperate climates of the time, thriving in a variety of habitats from river valleys to marshes and lakes. The exact cause of the European hippopotamus's extinction is unclear, but it likely became extinct around 10,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age. Several factors may have contributed, including climate change, habitat loss, and hunting by early human populations. The rise of the human population and the associated environmental pressures, such as the development of agriculture and changes in landscape, may have played a significant role in their decline. The European hippopotamus provides valuable insights into the adaptation of species to different climates and environments. It is a key species for understanding the Pleistocene fauna and the ecological history of Europe during this period. Fossil remains of the European hippopotamus have been found in various archaeological sites, indicating its presence during the time of early human settlements in Europe. Today, the modern Hippopotamus amphibius is still found in Africa. But the European hippopotamus remains a fascinating extinct species that once roamed large parts of Europe. Rewilding hippopotamuses into Europe could have several ecological, cultural and scientific benefits. Although the European hippopotamus, Hippopotamus antiquus, went extinct thousands of years ago, its modern relative, the common hippopotamus, Hippopotamus amphibius, could potentially be reintroduced to certain parts of Europe, where conditions are suitable for their survival. Hippopotamuses are known to be ecosystem engineers. By wallowing in water and grazing on grass, they create and maintain wetlands and water channels. Their activities can help prevent overgrowth of vegetation, creating habitats for a wide range of other species, including birds, amphibians and fish. The reintroduction of hippopotamuses could potentially lead to a more biodiverse environment. The presence of these large herbivores could improve habitats for many smaller species by maintaining open landscapes and ensuring a balance in the vegetation structure. Hippos are known to dig channels and create paths in rivers, which could help restore and maintain important wetland areas in Europe. This would benefit numerous aquatic species, such as fish and invertebrates, which rely on healthy freshwater ecosystems. The grazing habits of hippopotamuses help to maintain riparian zones, the interface between land and water, preventing the encroachment of dense vegetation into rivers and lakes. This could improve the quality of water bodies, benefiting other species that rely on these habitats. The wetlands created and maintained by hippopotamuses can act as carbon sinks, helping to sequester carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Wetlands play an important role in mitigating climate change by capturing and storing carbon in plants and soils. The presence of hippopotamuses could help in regulating water levels, particularly in floodplains and river systems. This could have benefits for agricultural lands and communities, especially in areas prone to flooding or drought. The reintroduction of hippopotamuses could restore a missing element in the trophic structure, the food chain, of some European ecosystems. By grazing and wallowing, they influence the distribution and abundance of other species, potentially increasing overall ecosystem stability. In regions where large carnivores, such as wolves or bears, are present, hippopotamuses could indirectly support these apex predators. For example, hippopotamuses' presence could boost the populations of scavengers, such as vultures, by providing additional carcasses for consumption. The reintroduction of hippopotamuses could attract tourists and wildlife enthusiasts, increasing opportunities for ecotourism and environmental education. This could promote conservation awareness and generate funding for further rewilding and habitat protection projects. Reintroducing a species that once roamed Europe in ancient times can deepen the connection people have with their natural history. It can be an opportunity to highlight Europe's past megafauna and promote awareness of the importance of conserving natural ecosystems. The rewilding of hippopotamuses offers an opportunity to study how large herbivores interacted with ecosystems during the Pleistocene and how they might help restore ecosystems to a more natural state. It could also contribute to understanding the processes of extinction and rewilding, providing valuable data for conservation efforts worldwide. The experience of reintroducing hippopotamuses to Europe could provide lessons for other rewilding projects, especially in terms of the challenges and benefits of large-scale ecological restoration. Several areas in Europe could potentially be considered for hippopotamus rewilding, depending on the specific environmental conditions and ecosystems. Southern Europe. These regions have warmer climates that might support hippopotamuses, especially in areas with large river systems like the Rhone in France, the Po River in Italy, or the Guadalquivir in Spain. These regions also have diverse ecosystems where the introduction of a large herbivore could have a beneficial effect on biodiversity. The Danube Basin, the Danube River and its surrounding floodplains could be a potential rewilding site. The river basin has a mixture of temperate and Mediterranean climates, and large wetlands exist along the river, which could be suitable for the hippopotamus's habitat needs. The Balkans. This region, which historically supported a range of large mammals during the Pleistocene, could be another possible area for rewilding. Efforts to restore wetlands and river systems in countries like Romania, Bulgaria and Serbia could create conditions conducive to a hippopotamus population. Reintroducing hippopotamuses into Europe and their interactions with other species, both existing and potentially rewilded in the future, could have a profound impact on ecosystems. Hippopotamuses are large grazers, and their reintroduction might lead to some competition with deer species for grassy areas, particularly in riparian zones and floodplains. However, their grazing habits are often concentrated around water bodies, which might reduce direct competition for food. In the long term, hippos' ecosystem engineering activities could improve the habitat for deer by maintaining wetland ecosystems, which could lead to healthier forests and meadows where deer forage. Moose, which prefer wooded environments and areas with abundant vegetation, may share some habitats with hippopotamuses. However, the moose's diet, which includes shrubs and tree branches, is different from the hippo's preference for grasses and aquatic plants. The main interaction could be indirect, with hippos influencing water quality and plant growth along rivers and wetlands. Both species could coexist if the habitats are large enough to support their differing ecological needs. The Saiga antelope prefers steppe and open grassland ecosystems. If reintroduced to Europe, saigas might coexist with hippopotamuses in broader landscapes, but there may be some competition for grasses. Since saigas tend to avoid wetland areas, the overlap with hippos' specific habitat, rivers and lakes, would likely be minimal. However, both species could benefit from the grasslands and wetlands maintained by the hippos. Wild cattle and hippopotamuses could coexist in overlapping habitats, particularly in floodplains and wetlands. Cattle are grazers, and their presence alongside hippos could lead to some competition for vegetation. However, wild cattle tend to prefer more open grasslands, while hippos gravitate toward wetland areas, reducing direct competition. Moreover, hippos' wallowing behavior could create more varied habitat structures that benefit both species by increasing habitat diversity. Wild horses graze on grasslands and are often found in similar areas as wild cattle. Like wild cattle, they may compete with hippopotamuses for grazing resources, particularly in shared environments. However, the hippo's impact on wetland and river systems could also improve the habitat for wild horses by providing more diverse ecological niches, including access to freshwater sources and grazing areas in riparian zones. Wild asses, such as the onager, are typically found in arid and semi-arid environments. Their range may not overlap significantly with that of hippopotamuses, whose habitat is centered around wetlands and water sources. However, in areas where both species could meet, such as in river valleys or more temperate regions, both could potentially share grazing lands. Their interactions would likely be minimal, with each species occupying distinct ecological niches. Water buffalo and hippopotamuses may have some overlap in their preferred wetland habitats. Water buffalo are large herbivores, and while they do graze on grasses, they are more flexible in their habitat use than hippos. The two species could coexist peacefully, with their presence in the same ecosystem potentially reinforcing each other's habitat, as both species are likely to help maintain the structure of riparian zones through their grazing and movement. European bison, which graze in forested and open landscapes, could coexist with hippopotamuses in larger ecosystems, particularly in areas where river systems and wetland habitats are present. The two species would likely use different portions of the landscape, with bison occupying forested or grassland areas and hippos focused on riverbanks and wetlands. The presence of both species could lead to a dynamic, multi-species ecosystem with a rich diversity of habitats. Wild boars, being omnivores, are highly adaptable and can live in a variety of habitats, including forests, wetlands, and grasslands. In areas with hippopotamuses, wild boars may share the landscape, but their interactions would be largely indirect. Boars could compete with hippos for certain food sources, such as roots and tubers in wetland environments, but since boars have a more varied diet, their impact on hippos' grazing areas would likely be minimal. Beavers and hippopotamuses are both considered ecosystem engineers because of their ability to modify their environment. Beavers build dams and create wetlands, while hippopotamuses wallow in water and graze on vegetation along riverbanks. Their interactions could be mutually beneficial, as the presence of hippos might help maintain open water areas that are also favorable for beavers. Additionally, beavers may benefit from the wetlands that hippos help create, increasing habitat diversity and stability. Elephants and hippopotamuses would likely have some competition for resources, particularly in shared wetland and riverine habitats. Both species are large herbivores and could compete for water and grazing areas. However, they could also coexist by occupying different ecological niches. Elephants are more likely to have a broader impact on forests and grasslands, whereas hippos focus on wetlands and aquatic vegetation. The reintroduction of both species could restore a dynamic, balanced ecosystem. Rhinos and hippopotamuses have similar diets, with both species grazing on grasses. If rhinos are reintroduced to Europe, there may be some competition between them and hippopotamuses for grazing land. However, rhinos, like elephants, are more likely to inhabit open savannas and grasslands, whereas hippos would primarily occupy wetlands and river systems. Their coexistence would depend on habitat size and availability, but they could complement each other by occupying different ecological zones within larger landscapes. The reintroduction of hippopotamuses into Europe would create a unique dynamic within ecosystems that would benefit some species while potentially causing competition with others. In the broader context of rewilding, their role as ecosystem engineers could enhance biodiversity, improve wetland habitats and support other rewilding projects by creating a diverse and balanced ecosystem. However, careful management and monitoring would be necessary to ensure that interactions with other species, both existing and future rewilded species, remain harmonious and beneficial for the ecosystem as a whole. The reintroduction of hippopotamuses to Europe would likely lead to interesting dynamics with apex predators and carnivores, including wolves, golden jackals, feral dogs, and other large carnivores. Wolves are primarily carnivores that hunt ungulates like deer, wild boar, and other mammals. Since hippopotamuses are large herbivores, wolves would not prey on them directly. However, wolves might scavenge from hippopotamuses if they die or are wounded. In areas where wolves and hippopotamuses coexist, wolves might avoid direct confrontation, as hippos are large, strong and aggressive when threatened. The presence of hippos could potentially affect the abundance of prey species for wolves, such as wild boars, which might share the same wetland areas. The presence of hippopotamuses could influence the availability of prey species for wolves, particularly in riverine or wetland habitats. Wolves might benefit from the healthier ecosystems created by hippos, which could lead to more prey availability in the long term. Golden jackals, being smaller and less formidable than wolves, are unlikely to directly challenge a hippopotamus. Instead, they would benefit as scavengers, feeding on leftover kills from larger predators or carcasses of hippos that have died from natural causes. The jackal's diet, which includes small mammals, birds and carrion, ensures they have minimal competition or conflict with hippopotamuses. Hippo-created wetlands could attract prey species, indirectly supporting jackal populations. Like golden jackals, feral dogs could scavenge from hippopotamus carcasses, but would likely avoid confronting a healthy adult hippo. Feral dogs, especially in packs, could pose a threat to young hippos or weak individuals. But large hippos are generally too dangerous for feral dogs to attack. In areas where feral dog packs roam, they might interfere with hippos' access to food sources, particularly if they are aggressive towards smaller animals in the ecosystem. Feral dogs could pose a threat to young or vulnerable hippos, especially if they are in a pack. However, healthy adult hippos are well protected from feral dogs due to their size and aggressive nature. Brown bears are omnivores and have a varied diet that includes berries, fish and small mammals. While brown bears do not typically hunt large herbivores like hippos, they might scavenge from dead or weakened hippos. Brown bears could also compete with hippopotamuses for resources in riverine ecosystems such as fish or aquatic plants, but direct interaction would be rare. Bears would likely avoid confrontation with healthy adult hippos due to their size and territorial aggression. Brown bears might occasionally come into conflict with hippos over food sources, particularly if the two species share the same territory. However, since bears tend to avoid large herbivores unless scavenging or in close proximity, direct interactions would be limited. Eurasian lynx are solitary predators that typically hunt small to medium-sized mammals, such as deer and hares. They would not pose a threat to adult hippopotamuses, and since hippos live in wetland or aquatic environments, their habitats would not significantly overlap with lynx territories. The two species are unlikely to interact directly, although lynx might benefit indirectly from the increased biodiversity and healthier ecosystems maintained by the presence of hippopotamuses. Persian leopards, like other big cats, are opportunistic hunters and scavengers. They would not typically prey on hippopotamuses, but they might scavenge from dead or weakened hippos. The leopard's territorial behavior might lead to some conflict with hippopotamuses in overlapping areas, particularly in regions where they both share space in riparian zones or along rivers. However, the interaction would likely be limited, as leopards are more focused on hunting smaller herbivores and mammals. Persian leopards might avoid adult hippopotamuses, but could become more interested in younger or injured hippos. However, given the size and strength of adult hippos, the risk of direct conflict would be minimal. Asiatic lions, like their African counterparts, are apex predators and could potentially prey on young or vulnerable hippopotamuses if the two species coexisted in the same ecosystem. Lions would likely avoid confronting healthy adult hippos due to their size and aggression, but they might pose a threat to hippo calves or smaller individuals. In areas where both species live in close proximity, lions could benefit from the presence of carcasses of dead hippos or weakened individuals. Asiatic lions might also compete with hippos for space and resources in shared habitats, particularly in riverine or floodplain areas. Hippos and lions could have some territorial overlap, but lions would likely focus on large herbivores like deer, wild boar, or even wild cattle, leaving the hippos largely undisturbed. As we've seen, reintroducing hippopotamuses to Europe isn't just about bringing back a lost giant. It's about restoring ecosystems, balancing biodiversity, and reigniting our connection to the natural world. The return of the river titans could transform Europe's wetlands and rivers into thriving havens of life. But this bold vision comes with challenges, careful planning, and your support. What do you think about the idea of rewilding hippos in Europe? Could they help shape a brighter future for our planet? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this journey into the past and future of Europe's landscapes, don't forget to like, share and subscribe for more rewilding adventures. Together we can dream big and make a difference. Thank you for watching, and remember, we are the Wildlife Nation.